This is part 1 as far as our lecture series on the Indian Penal Code of 1860 is concerned. In this lecture series, I intend to start right from section 1 and go up to section 511 of the Indian Penal Code. In order to understand all these 511 sections of the Indian Penal Code, it's necessary for us to deal with 23 chapters as far as the Indian Penal Code is concerned. Right in the beginning, let me make one thing very clear to you, which you should follow forever, that whenever we are dealing with the provisions of the Indian Penal Code, I don't mind, you may read any book written by any author, but the most important part which you should remember forever is that you should always have a bare act as far as the Indian Penal Code is concerned with you for ready reference. And then during course of time you will learn importance that as you start going through the section, as you start reading the section, as you start analyzing the section, as you start carrying out the section of the section, during the course of time, you will find out that it becomes very easy for you to understand the provisions with which we are dealing during course of time. Now, as we have started discussing the provisions of the Indian Penal Code of 1860, it's but natural that you, being a student of law, you must know the nature of the law. And then, as far as this Indian Penal Code is concerned, it is a substantive law. Law in general is required to be classified or can be classified under two different heads. One is what is known as substantive law and the other is what is known as procedural law. What is substantive law? Substantive law is that law which defines rights, duties and liabilities of an individual, whereas procedural law is the law which tells you the mechanism to implement the provisions of the substantive law. I have already uploaded 56 parts as far as the Code of Criminal Procedure, and when we were dealing with the Criminal Procedure Code of 1973, we have dealt with the procedural aspect, and now this is a time where, taking into consideration the response that I had by delivering those lectures, there was request on the part of many students why not to start with lecture series as far as the Indian Penal Code is concerned, and this is I have already started now dealing as far as first part with respect to the Indian Penal Code is concerned. So now this is a substantive law, and then the next question naturally will be for us to understand, is it necessary for you to go through all provisions from the point of view of understanding Indian Penal Code? No. You must go through 511 sections in order to deal with all provisions as far as Indian Penal Code is concerned. But for the purpose of understanding Indian Penal Code, for the purpose of knowing Indian Penal Code, I personally feel that this is the time where you should know the arrangement of the sections in the Indian Penal Code, so that instead of going through all the sections, if you merely concentrate right in the beginning on that particular section of the Indian Penal Code which defines an act which amounts to an offence, that will definitely serve your purpose from the point of view of understanding the provisions of the Indian Penal Code. Why I say so? Now, at the time of dealing with the provisions of the Indian Penal Code, I will have to give many illustrations, and then it is only because of the illustrations that it is possible for you to remember the sections with which we shall be dealing during course of our time. Now, if you start this, if you start right from section 378 up to section 462 of the Indian Penal Code, this is chapter 17, dealing with offences against property. And then if you read section 378 of the Indian Penal Code, that defines the offence of theft. Section 378 of the Indian Penal Code defines the offence of theft. Right from section 379 up to section 382 are the sections which deal with punishment. Now this punishment depends upon what? If you just go merely as far as the headings of sections are concerned, namely section 379 lays down punishment for theft. Section 380, punishment for theft in dwelling house, etc. Section 381, theft by clerk or servant of property in possession of master. Section 382, theft after preparation made for causing death, hurt or restraint in order to the committing of the theft. So now, if you start right from section 378 and come up to section 382, for the purpose of knowing what do you mean by theft, it is only one section, and that is section 378 that you have to take into consideration, and then the rest of the sections are the sections which deal with punishment. Punishment depends upon the circumstances or the situation as per which the offence is committed, where it has been committed, and what is the property with respect to which the offence has been committed is dealt as far as those sections dealing with punishments are concerned. If you read the next section, that is section 383 of the Indian Penal Code, that defines the offence of extortion, and then right from section 384 up to section 389 are the sections which deal with punishment. So now this is the arrangement of the sections in the Indian Penal Code, and this arrangement, if you understand, you will come to know that you read section 378, after that you read section 384, after that you read section 390 of the Indian Penal Code which defines the offence of robbery, then you read section 391 of the Indian Penal Code which defines the offence of dacoity, and then rest of the sections right from section 392 up to 402 of the Indian Penal Code are the sections which deal with punishment. Now, if you have reference to the provisions of the Criminal Procedure Code, you will come to know during course of time, a person is always charged as per that section of the Indian Penal Code which does not define an act which amounts to an offence but which lays down punishment. So when you refer to the provisions of the Criminal Procedure Code, a person is always charged as per that section by which punishment is laid down. So from the point of view of Criminal Procedure Code, yes, both the sections are important. But here from the point of view of understanding Indian Penal Code, it is one section, and which is that section? The section that defines an act which amounts to, what do you mean by an offence? Or what do you mean? Rest of the things with which we shall be dealing during course of time. But right in the beginning, in the first lecture itself, let me tell you that though there are 511 sections in the Indian Penal Code, it's instead of reading all the sections as far as this is concerned, only concentrate on that particular section of the Indian Penal Code which defines an act which amounts to an offence which serves the purpose from the point of view of understanding Indian Penal Code. Now, this is one, as we go on taking into consideration many more illustrations with which we shall be dealing, read section 425 of the Indian Penal Code. Section 425 of the Indian Penal Code defines the offence of mischief. Right from section 426 up to section 440 are the sections which deal with punishment. So when you want to learn Indian Penal Code, when you start right from section 425 and go up to section 440 of the Indian Penal Code, which is the most important section from my point of view, section 425 of the Indian Penal Code, by reading that section you come to know what do you mean by mischief, or what is the offence of mischief as it is defined by section 425 of the Indian Penal Code. This is in general arrangement of the sections in the Indian Penal Code. There are some chapters in the Indian Penal Code, or there are some sections in the Indian Penal Code that if you read the section, you come to know the nature of the offence, and in the same section you come to know the quantum of the punishment that can be inflicted by the court of law. So that also we will take into consideration. It's not that I say in general, this is the arrangement of the sections in the Indian Penal Code, especially when you refer to the chapters like offences against property right from section 378 up to 462. When we will start our discussion as far as right from section 299 up to section 377 of the Indian Penal Code, this is a chapter dealing with offences against human body. There also you will come to know that you read the section, you come to know what is the offence, and after reading, after doing the offence, you read rest of the sections which deal with the punishment that can be inflicted by the court of law. For example, let me give you one illustration as far as offences against offences against human body is concerned, and that is read section 319 of the Indian Penal Code that defines what do you mean by hurt. Read section 320 that defines what do you mean by grievous hurt. Section 321 of the Indian Penal Code defines the offence of voluntarily causing hurt, whereas section 322 defines the offence of voluntarily causing grievous hurt. Right from section 323 up to section 338 are the sections which deal with punishment. What is the nature of the hurt? Under what circumstances the offence of voluntarily causing hurt or voluntarily causing grievous hurt is committed on the part of an individual? The quantum of the punishment depends upon that. And hence, for the purpose of understanding as to the nature of the offence, it's not at all necessary for you to go through the sections dealing with punishment. Only concentrate on that particular section. That is the one hint which I wanted to give you right in the beginning. Now, the reason why I told you that you should always keep Baer Act with you for the purpose of understanding the provisions of the Indian Penal Code is very simple, which can be illustrated by one aspect, and that is when you are dealing with section 300, you want to know what do you mean by theft. Read section 378 of the Indian Penal Code, and then when you start reading section 378 of the Indian Penal Code, which says, whoever intending to take dishonestly any movable property out of the possession of any person without that person's consent moves that property in order to such taking is said to commit theft. So now what is expected? Are you expected to remember the section as it is written in the book or the Baer Act? No. Go on reading the section. As you go on reading the section, the time for you to carry out dissection of the section, the time for you to carry out analysis of the section, and once you carry out dissection of the section, you will come to know what are the essentials what are the ingredients to constitute liability for the offense of theft as it is defined by section 378 of the Indian Penal Code. And once you read that, once you understand that, it is, I mean, along with this now, it's not only you have to read section 378, no, certainly not. Along with section 378 of the Indian Penal Code, for the purpose of having clarity with respect to the ingredients with which we shall be dealing during course of our lecture, mind well one thing, this is just introduction, and hence in the introduction I am trying to simplify the subject in such a manner whereby if you have that approach, if you study the subject with that particular approach which is clear right in the beginning, it will be very easy for you to, I mean, work out the details during course of our lecture series. So now you read the section, try to, I mean, find out as to what are the ingredients to constitute offense as per that section of the Indian Penal Code, point number 1. 2. Do read the explanations which are given after the section. In the absence of explanation, make the ingredients very clear. In the absence of reading the explanations, it may not be possible for you to understand the section with which you are dealing. And then, as you refer to the Bare Act, you will come to know there are illustrations which are given after the section. So it is also a must for you to go through the illustrations, and by reading the illustrations you will find out that as you go on reading the illustrations which are given after the section, you understand the ingredients of the section very clearly. For example, now as far as the offense of theft is concerned, you go through the section, you read the 5 explanations which are given as far as section 378 of the Indian Penal Code is concerned, and then you read the illustrations from small a to small p which serves the purpose. So always have this practice of reading the illustration so that whatever is read by you in the section is very clear by having reference to the illustration, because it is with the help of the illustration that it is possible for you to understand the provisions with which we are dealing. So do go through the illustrations which are given. Now, while dealing with the section now, and then for example now, I mean, you start reading the section, whoever intending to take dishonestly. Now the first ingredient says intention must be dishonest, or the person must move the property dishonestly, who are intending to take dishonestly. Now the time for me to tell you at this stage the importance of one chapter as far as Indian Penal Code is concerned, and that you should remember forever. What is dishonestly? Now in order to know this, the meaning of the term dishonestly, as it is not explained by section 378 of the Indian Penal Code, while reading section 378 of the Indian Penal Code, you must have what is known as reference back. And by that we mean you have to refer to right from section 6 up to section 52A of the Indian Penal Code, and heading of the chapter is General Explanations. So if you do not find out meaning of the term dishonestly by reading section 378, you have reference back to General Explanations. And then when you read General Explanations, you find out which section, as far as this chapter is concerned, defines dishonesty. Hence you read section, if you have Bare Act and immediately read out, you will come to know it is section 24 which defines dishonesty. So you read, you come to know the meaning of the term dishonesty by reading section 24 of the Indian Penal Code, with which we shall be dealing in during course of time. Yes. So that is, whenever you come across a particular term, in order to understand a particular section of the Indian Penal Code, and if that term is not defined by that section of the Indian Penal Code, the time for you to refer to general explanations right from section 6 up to section 52A of the Indian Penal Code. And then if you go through general explanations, there may be a situation, and the situations with which we shall be dealing during course of time, that by reading right from section 6 up to section 52A of the Indian Penal Code, you don't come to know the meaning of the term, because that is not defined by this chapter, namely general explanations, as far as Indian Penal Code is concerned. As a student of law, follow one practice. Whenever you are dealing with a particular enactment and you come across a situation that the term to which you have come across is not at all defined by that particular enactment with which you are dealing, then naturally you have to refer to the provisions of the General Clauses Act of 1897. So that is the next step that is required to be taken by you as a student of law. Read the provisions as far as General Clauses Act of 1897 is concerned to find out the meaning of the term. And then if General Clauses Act also doesn't define the term with which you are concerned, naturally you can refer to any standard dictionary from the point of view of understanding the meaning of the same. This practice is required to be followed by you forever. As a student learning law, first section always deals with territorial application of the law, and it says this act or this code extends to the whole of the India except the state of Jammu and Kashmir. In general, second section of the enactment is always a defining section, barring few exceptions like Indian Penal Code. It is not section 2 here which is the defining section. It's a chapter right from section 6 up to section 52A of the Indian Penal Code which define. So you go through that. If it is silent, you go through the General Clauses Act. If it doesn't make mention, you refer to the provisions of the, as I told you, refer to any standard dictionary from the point of view of knowing the meaning of the particular term. At times it may also be required, you may also be required to refer to the decisions that are given by the Supreme Court and the High Court for the purpose of knowing the interpretation of a particular clause accordingly, with which we shall be dealing during course of our lecture series. So this is one thing that I want to tell you, that though there are 511 sections in the Indian Penal Code, right in the beginning, just try to concentrate on that particular section of the Indian Penal Code which defines an act which amounts to an offence, and this should be the approach. And once you know what is the approach for the purpose of knowing a particular section which defines an act which amounts to an offence, it will be very easy for you to proceed further. At times it may happen by reading section one time, it may not be possible for you to understand. So it is necessary, I shall try my best to explain everything in detail, no doubt about it. I shall try to make it as simple as possible, no doubt about it. But naturally, there must be cooperation on your part. There must be contribution on your part, and there must be active participation on your part, so that your understanding of the subject becomes very clear. So we are dealing with the Indian Penal Code of we have started dealing with the provisions of the Indian Penal Code of 1860, which is a substantive law. Substantive law is that law. Why we say it? Why it is substantive law? Because it defines rights, duties and liabilities, and why it is so, with which we shall be dealing during course of our lectures, no doubt about it. So this is one aspect which you should remember before we proceed further. With this now, as we have started, we will have few lectures which will be sort of introductory lectures for the purpose of understanding the provisions of the Indian Penal Code of 1860 with which we shall be dealing. And then we shall go chapter wise, where it will be possible for us to understand as to various offenses with which we shall be dealing as far as our series of lectures is concerned.